respect for everyone's time, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for logging in to join us today. I miss seeing you guys in the classroom, but doing these weekly freebie Zooms, I'm excited to be able to see you. We have great sponsors who unfortunately can't be live in the classroom. So what we have done is went ahead and invited a sponsor to say hi to everyone today, because we certainly value their contributions to FAR, and it's a new world. So instead of being in the classroom, we can sponsor a Zoom. So with that, we have NSWC Laura Gilchrist here. You want to say hi, say a few words? I've unmuted everyone.
Well, hi, and thank you for letting me come on, because it's great to see so many faces. I haven't seen this many faces in a long time. But I'm Laura. I'm from NSWC Federal Credit Union, and we are your sponsor today. And again, thank you for letting me come on and say hi to everyone. We did do a locked in with Kim. It was a great time. There's a lot of details on how NSWC Federal Credit Union is here for you to support FAR. You are all eligible to be members. Even though our lobbies aren't open, we are still open for business, all of our departments. So if there's anything you need, please reach out to us. We're here for you. So enjoy your training. Thank you for letting me come on and speaking. It's great to see everybody. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. All right, I'm going to mute all and then unmute Chip and Kevin so we can get started.
There's Barbara. Hi, Barbara.
Hello, hello. So I'm sure you guys saw, can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. I'm sure you guys saw the front page of the Freelance Star a few weeks back, where I'm trying to unmute as I talk. There we go, Chip and Kevin are muted. I'm sure you guys saw the front page of the Freelance Star with Chip there, showing how he is doing transactions mostly virtually, what can't be virtual, very safe. And although many of you guys have already navigated this successfully, a lot of us have some questions along the way. That's why I thought it would be fun to do kind of a roadmap, start to finish, of how we are replacing our normal face-to-face with virtual wherever possible, and things that we can't change, how we can make it more safe. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chip and Kevin, and have a great time, guys. I'll be here in the background if you need anything.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us today. You know, we've been into this kind of virus zone for 5 to 6 weeks now. So this is a little bit rudimentary for some of us, but others have not so much. You've been sheltered at home and stuff like that, not going out. I've been very proud of, especially the real estate industry. We've really adapted really, really quickly on a dime. And thankfully we have technology that can kind of keep things going along. I'm particularly thankful for sometimes we don't always appreciate or can't tangibly tell what the Virginia Realtors, our association at the state level, is doing for us. And in this case, they've been kicking butt with the governor's office to keep real estate essential and keeping us rocking and rolling. And we can't take that for granted, because I know I'm dealing with one client right now in Pennsylvania who has got a contract on their place, but they have not deemed home inspectors to be essential. So they can go under contract, they can do a radon test, they can do a termite test, they can do all these things, but the home inspectors were not deemed essential, so they're kind of stuck in the water once they go under contract. So I'm really appreciative of that. So we'll share with you guys some tips, and you guys can share with us too. We're all learning along the way here. We have some people say, you know, well, great, this will be the new way of doing real estate. And, you know, I think it's forced some people to finally step up to the plate that were really dabbling in Zoom and different things before. And now I think they have to take it more seriously, but I honestly hope it doesn't take the place, because there's nothing like sitting down with the buyer or the seller and explaining documents and doing things when you can. But there's a lot of different ways to do our job now, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Yeah, it is a new and changing world, and we're finding that a lot of agents have really stepped it up and are embracing new technology. And I think what Chip said about you know, what's going to be the new normal and what's not is important, because I see a future where somebody wants to see 10 houses, but we only actually take them to see 3, because this new technology that everybody's embracing allows you to see so much more. And think about, from a standpoint of, it's so much less disruptive on a seller's life. You know, now it's February, it's cold, and you got to load all the kids and the dogs and the farm animals up in the minivan and go out at 6 o'clock at night for somebody to show a home that never shows up. this has the potential to reduce incidents like that. But one thing I think about a lot, and this has really been something that we've dealt with in our industry for a long time anyway, is that I think we have to make sure that we don't use these tools as crutches. And it's the same old story with DocuSign. It's a great tool, but not if you just send it to your client and say, sign this. That reduces our value. So one of our opportunities is going to be make sure that we use these tools in a way that accentuates our value, not replaces it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to kind of break this down into working with sellers, working with buyers, the closing process as we go through. I've been on several listing appointments. Only one have I done live. And the only reason I did that live is because the gentleman was he's 84, I believe. He just didn't do technology. And and it was kind of hard to explain the documents and stuff. So I did have to go to his house, use best practices, and took care of that. But beyond that, it's been all Zoom. Like Kevin said, DocuSign. I've met people outside their house. I've met them on their porches. There's a lot of different ways to get this done and make it happen. It's interesting, and we're really starting to watch the market. We kind of drove into this thing in the spring market where it was already robust. And for right now, for sellers, it's understandable if they don't want to put their house on the market and have 30 people come through their house touching everything and they've got kids and stuff. But I can't say enough what a good time it is to sell your house, because if it wasn't already a tight market inventory wise before, now with some people pulling back on things, it's even better right now in terms of getting your house sold. So if you don't mind doing that, and if you don't mind different practices, there's different ways you can go about it. It really is. You're really missing out on a really good time to try to sell your house.
Has anybody here in the watching from home done virtual open houses yet? You can just wave your hand, shake your head, jump up and down, whatever. Anybody tried that yet? Some no's there. So the virtual open house is an interesting thing. And I had one group in my office, and I can't tell if they're on here or not, but they actually had on the virtual open house, from the advertising and the actual open house, 10,000 and some hits.
They're up to 20.
Up to 20 now. So the marketing that you're able to put out there, and then think about this, if it's all a numbers game, if we were all before saying, I got to get enough people over the threshold so that there'll be a buyer. Well, then if you had 1 or 2 showings, it was harder. If you had 20 showings, it was easier. It's the same thing with this. If you have 20,000 people look at that ad on Facebook or online or whatever, think about the odds going up in your favor of getting offers, and think about the lack of resistance you're going to get from a seller. How are they going to say you're not doing anything? Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I had over 20,000 people look at your house. Have you ever had a realtor do that? No. And I don't think it cost them next to any money. I don't think they even boosted the posts.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's one of the things we try to really make everybody look through and see. I mean, I've gone through waves where I feel like, oh, I'm on vacation. It feels nice to be at home, to I need to get myself together, wake up in the morning, get showered and stuff like that. You go through different ways, but there's a lot of different opportunities to go out there and capture the market. And what they've done too is they actually dedicated or created a brand new Facebook business page specifically for virtual tours. And they're not just doing theirs. They're asking everybody in the office, can I go do a virtual tour of your house? They've done 2 of mine. Absolutely, no problem whatsoever. Anything more I can do to expose my property, it's wonderful out there. So it's really good stuff. And before I forget, without the social distancing thing, Kevin and I are around each other every single day. So if we're already bad, then we're bad, because we're around each other every single day. So that's why we're within 6 feet of each other. So when you're talking about going out there and marketing those houses for sale right now, it was already really, really critical. And I'm sorry, I still really have a hard time when I see agents saving money and taking pictures with their phones. You know what? The days of having the full page ads and all that stuff are gone. That costs us a tremendous amount of money to have those things appear with a shelf life of 1 week. Go spend a few $100s, take care of your sellers. You are a marketing firm. Market your properties, get the virtual tour. It is critical right now to getting that home sold.
You know, if we think about the old adage that the internet is a visual medium, I mean, absent good pictures or absent pictures, you know, remember, there's those of us that have been around long enough, remember when we used to put the listing in and say, I'll get the pictures in a couple days. Remember that? Well, that bus has left the station. You can't do that anymore. And I think it has definitely left the station now, even more than before, of taking it with your phone, because you have limited time to grab that consumer's interest and make them stay on that page to look at that property. So professional pictures, I think, are a definite must.
And even though I had a townhome last weekend that I knew it was going to sell just like that, and it did. But it doesn't mean I'm not going to save money, hold money back on that, because this is how I market my properties. Other people are going to see this is how I market my properties. When you go out there and you go doing pre-marketing, post-marketing, doing under contracts and stuff, you want to use high quality, good pictures out there. It just, again, I don't even think it's an option anymore. You really have to have professional photography. Whoever it is you use, it's a must.
So you've had a pretty good success with selling properties without people ever actually going inside the property. So tell me a little bit about that process.
You know, it's a really weird experience right now. If you're fortunate enough to have a vacant home, obviously it's not that bad. Like everybody, we supply our wipes and all that kind of good stuff, and we do our best practices. It's not really been a problem. When I go through the house that way, I'm carrying a wipe with me. I'm opening up all the doors. If it's just one house, I'm going there first. I'm turning all the light switches. And it's also really helpful for sellers if you can pass along the tip. If they're still occupying the home, before they leave, turn on all the lights, open up doors. It makes it a lot easier, a lot less things for us to touch when we go through. So it's a really great tip when you can show that value to your clients. But basically, vacant homes, that's one way. And then you have occupied homes where we all know right now, and we had to adapt and change. And now it's becoming a little bit normal, where you have sellers that won't allow agents in the house to show the house. Who would have thunk 2 months ago that we'd be showing homes without even seeing these homes? But I've had 2 homes now that I put under contract, one on the buy side, one on the sell side, where the buyers did not go in the home first, and we'll talk about that later. It's very easy to do to make all this kind of stuff happen out there.
So what are some of the challenges you have to leapfrog over when you're accepting a contract from someone that hasn't seen the home, but they've only seen it online? What things are you actually looking for to make sure you're not creating roadblocks? Well,
you know, in some instances, like I've got one client I'm working with right now that's military, that's transferring in from Portugal. They can't be here. So even if this virus hadn't taken place, I would still be going through either FaceTiming them, encouraging them to do the virtual tours through the process. But honestly, no real challenges. You know, right now I understand why people don't want people to their homes, and they only want serious people. You get different addenda out there. They seem to have faded a little bit now. There were some where I felt kind of silly, where you had to sign out a form before you even show the house. Or do you have the virus? Do you know somebody? Who knows? That was just such a weird thing to try to put your buyers or sellers in that kind of position. But it seems to have calmed down some right now. But it really has been no problem. On the lists, well, when I had a buyer and I had somebody that was virtual, where we could not look at it before, we looked at all the homes. We checked it. We looked at all the pictures. We looked at the virtual tour. He wrote the contract. And the same thing when I had a seller. Well, that's a little different situation I want to talk to you about too. But basically, we just wrote the contract under the contingencies and clauses, under general comments at I think it's page 2 or 3. I just write in there that the contract is contingent for, I put 48 hours for the buyer to preview it and make sure that the house is acceptable to them. So far I'm 2 for 2. I closed on one yesterday that was done that way, and I was the listing agent on that property. That one was a little bit different. That one, just so you understand a little bit too, that one was a coming soon listing.
Now that's a great point. We've got a question from Sandy Pierce, and it's a good one. Do you use a sight unseen addendum?
I have not. I just put in, because that sight unseen addendum is a little bit lengthier than what I liked. Basically, I just found it much simpler just to put the 48-hour contingency in there. There's a lot of language in the sight unseen that I didn't really care for too much myself. I just keep it short and simple. Basically, at that point in time, you look at it, and if you like it, great. And if not, well, contract falls apart, we put it back on the market again.
This is the part where I throw the disclaimer out that whatever we say, please check with your broker.
Always.
Yeah, occasionally some of your brokers will pick up a tab in a local bar, and we don't want to kill that gravy train, so we don't want to make them mad. Yeah. So thanks, Sherrie, for laughing at that. I appreciate that, because apparently I was getting nothing from anybody else in the audience. Talk about home inspections a little bit.
Home inspections, I've done them both ways. There have been some home inspections where I was not even present. The sellers really wanted to restrict who was in the house. And where I wouldn't, if that happens, then I'm going to meet them there. I'm going to open the doors, and the home inspector is going to do their thing and get back with us with reports. Everybody is different out there. You get some agents that are very lax, just like before, and they don't care who's in the home. No worries that way. But you know, this is one time that I do think that we have a great excuse to really take control of our business and take care of our clients, both in both capacities. When you're out there working with buyers, you really need to control things. And if you have a client out there that wants to look at 20 homes, that's not going to happen in today's world. If I can help it, my clients are looking at the homes virtually first, they're driving past the homes, and then they're narrowing it down to their top 3 or 4. That's it. This is not a tour of homes like we normally would have. There's no reason. If something is just like maybe, no, that's not where we're at right now. And the other part too, I've actually had, when I have listings out there, I only allow the principals to the transaction to be present in the property and the realtor. There's no reason that grandma and grandpa and the kids and the whole family's got to come through. And I've had 2 different realtors call me and, you know, kind of get on me a little bit and say, well, they want to bring their kids and they're very upset because their kids can't come. I just look back with that agent and I say, why in the world would they want their kids out there running through homes, touching things and stuff like that? It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the best policy is only the people that are parties to the contract should be going through. And if there's more than 2, I mean, it should be, you know, at separate times or something like that. We have a question from C. Lynn Linehan. And it's another good one. If it's not your listing, do you get permission from the listing agent to FaceTime or video? So I think, yes, I think that's always been the policy that, you know, I mean, I think it's a vacant house. They probably don't care, but I still think it is a best practice to get permission because, you know, we all have those situations where a buyer calls up and says, hey, I want my pictures of my house off the internet. And I always think, you know, let me just get my internet key out, because I can control that. But, you know, you can get them off MLS, but they're on thousands of other websites. It's the same thing if you start putting FaceTime out there. You never know where it is. So I think best practice would always be, hey, just, you know, one of my buyers is out of town or something. We want to do that. Most agents don't mind, but I would not want to be the agent getting the phone call that, hey, there's a video floating around of all my people's personal stuff. That would be awkward.
You know, it may be helpful too. I haven't done this, but if the house is vacant and you don't mind them FaceTiming the house or doing any type of a video, it may not be a bad idea in the agent remarks section just to add that comment. Feel free to videotape or FaceTime these houses. That way it saves an extra step for everybody out there.
Now, Patricia Schenk also asks, only principals in the property, people party to the contract. Do you put that in the contract? No, I don't think so, but I think the seller has the right to limit their exposure, COVID or no COVID. If there was no COVID, they could say, hey, we just only want, I'm a germaphobe, I only want 2 people in the house at a time. So I think if I am a listing agent and I'm having that conversation up front with the seller, hey, here's what I would like to suggest, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, that we limit showings to only those that are actually going to be on the contract. And if it's more than 2, then we'll have a conversation. It's rarely more than 2. But I think that's important that it's another way to bring our value to the transaction of I'm looking out for your safety, Mr. or Mrs. Seller. This is what I suggest we do to keep you safe and to limit your exposure.
Yeah. And again, remember, that's just what it's about. We represent our clients, take care of their best interests. I had the property I closed on yesterday. The buyer's agent was a wonderful agent, but they had a different way of doing things, which maybe in different times would be okay. But for them, the way they did it, they sent an addendum every time every contingency in the contract was removed. They would send me a new addendum and say, here's this addendum, hereby removing it, and all these are in place still. And then she sent me a second one, and this was a gentleman that was 84 years old. And I just said, no, no. And I said, I've honestly never seen an agent be that tedious. We keep sending the addenda like that all the time. And, you know, their response was, that's the way they do it all the time. I said, well, you can do it every other time, but you're not going to do it this time because I'm not running out to an 84-year-old man and exposing him more than I need to. So, you know, you need to take control of the transaction and look out for your clients as best as you possibly can.
Now, we also talk about appraisals. Apparently, appraisals can now be drive-by as well as interior. So what are some of the things that we can do as listing agents to mitigate any loss of the perception of value by the appraiser if they're not going in the property?
I think the best thing you can do, they're not going to go inside of the pictures again, are the biggest valuable thing you can do. You're going to make sure you note any special features in that. There are tons. God, what was it? How many characters did we used to have in the remarks section?
It was 400, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And now it's like 10,000 or
Yeah.
something.
There's no excuse for not making plenty of notes that are in there. And a little bit off this, but it really is important too, guys. The new form that NVAR put out, K1385, you need to start incorporating that into your listing process. That is a 2-page form that is really, really helpful to the buyer's agent. It lists all the conveyances, the proper name of the proper spelling of the seller, who the sellers are, if the gas tank is leased or owned. It's honestly all those spots in the contract when you get to them and you're like, oh, did it have a garbage disposal? You know? And it's really, really, I mean, I'm forever thankful when I see that uploaded in the document section. And, you know, especially, I still see it frequently, is that delivery section left blank on the listing agent. And you got to make sure you get your offers looking really good and tight.
We just got another question from Sherry's iPhone. And she said, would you suggest separate additional pictures for appraisal? Well, what I always like to do when I was in that situation was print out all the pictures in color from the MLS. And then also, you know, sometimes you have sellers like, ooh, include my picture, it's so good. And you're like, oh God, I can't market with that picture. But for the appraiser, it may give another view to value the property, a perception of value. So I would you know, bring the seller in on that part of the transaction. Say, hey, what can you tell me about the property? What did you like? What did you like about living here? Something that can, because it, you know, appraisers, I know it's hard to believe, but they're people too. So I hear you, Shay. But they, now I totally forgot what I was going to say. It was about pictures. Oh, but they're still going to be affected by the pictures and have an emotional reaction to it. So Shay Williams-Hinnant says, Chip, you began to say something about coming soon, but your friend cut you off. Shay.
Yeah, this is like one of those kind of touchy things. At first, I actually had to consult Kevin when it came through, where I have a home that's listed as a coming soon listing, and then I get an offer. The buyer's never been in the house. It was in a coming soon status. What do you do? Well, you represent the seller, so what do? You present the offer.
Present the offer.
There's no other choice you've got. You know, and that one seemed to work out perfectly fine. Now they put that 48-hour contingency in there, and if the buyer came out and said, I don't like it, well, at that point in time, I'm forced to either go active with a listing or take it off the market. I can't keep it. I can't go back to coming soon status. But in this case, they brought in a full price offer, no closing costs. I mean, I'd be neglectful if I didn't let my seller know about that. She tried originally to go into the house before, and I'm like, no, we can't do that. But if you have an offer, as long as that property's not been shown, you know, in that coming soon status, you can still proceed with presenting that offer to the seller. It's up to the seller what they want to do with it. They could wait or not. So,
Patricia Joy Shank, I'm looking on getting an answer to your question. Is there any way to know beforehand if an appraisal will be or can be a drive-by? It's a good question. So I am reaching out to someone right now, and hopefully I'll have that answer before we get off the phone call.
Yeah.
But the thing here.
Well, and the one thing that I tell you that is really helpful right now, the technology we have, and again, one thing that realtors don't do enough of, they don't show their value. And the perception is out there for the buyer or the seller. If you're not communicating with them, letting them know what you're doing, monitoring the progress, taking advantage of technology right now. There's no reason, again, that people have to be out there. But if you've got a home inspection report, you've got repairs have been done, as a listing agent or as a buyer's agent, you can go out there, you can take pictures, you can take videos, send that to your clients. It's extremely helpful to them so they still feel like they're a part of the process and that you're doing a good job representing them.
Sandy Pierce says, I emailed the appraiser the day before asking if they needed a day code and if it would be a drive-by. Great. That is a great idea, Sandy Pierce, staying in touch with them and finding out beforehand what you're dealing with. Because again, if it's a drive-by, and this is, you know, Chip has run into this, it's a townhouse that did not have a lot of comps, and it comped out at one price very clearly. But we know from being in this townhouse that it has been way upgraded over the neighborhood regularity. So, will the on a drive-by, all that's lost. So a package for the appraiser there is quite critical.
Absolutely. Well, and I think basically, like I say, we've adapted. I think most of us have adapted pretty quickly to what's going on out there. I think the hardest thing for me has been not attending closings with my clients. I really, that's a part I really don't like. All you can do in that level, every title company's got their own best practices, the way they're doing it, whether they're walk in, drive by, mail off, whatever that's going on, but they're getting done. But just make sure you're reviewing those documents prior to the closing and talking with them. Using Zoom, if you haven't learned Zoom yet, then you're probably one of the minority out there for sure, because now having those Zoom conferences, throwing the documents, whether it's a listing agreement, the contract, explaining this stuff, that's again showing your value.
Well, and the other thing is you can share your screen with Zoom. So if I am going to work with a buyer and go through I can go through the virtual tour with them. Okay. So you can still bring your value to the table, even though you're not sitting right there with them. Now, you started talking about closers, and then Shay, I did not cut him off that time. But when we're going to closing, now that's certainly a different animal now, isn't it, Chip?
Well, it is, and it isn't. It's still the same process, but it's just much less human contact through the whole process. I don't know that we're doing much different. It's just that we physically can't be there.
Well, agents are generally not allowed to the closings. There is different title companies are doing different things. There's drive-by closings where the title person will walk out to the car and hand the people paper. There are some title companies actually have a lobby that is ultra clean, that some title companies have even been sending the papers that don't have to be wet signed in advance, and the people can either print them out or just sign them electronically and send it back, and then they're just coming by to sign the most important papers. But yeah, we are having a reduction in face-to-face things. And again, that's another challenge. On one hand, we got the challenge side of we are not there at the closing table to continue to build a relationship and show our value. But on the other hand, it does force us to think differently how to overcome that, and while we're not there, come up with ways to bring more value to the table and actually stay in touch.
Yeah. And also we talk Zoom. That's a word we never thought we'd use so much. But for anybody out there that's a little bit technically challenged, I am not a big techie person at all. But if you feel like you're not comfortable with Zoom, you need to grab somebody from your office, someone from your family. You need to practice Zooming and learn how to screen share. It's not hard. It's really not hard. It's just a matter of hitting a button and then pulling up the document that you want to review, and then you still have other people in the window so you can talk with them. But don't be intimidated by that. You have to be the professional. I think right now, if you don't know Zoom, you're not going to look like a modern day realtor.
And Zoom is free, so it's a free account. And there's been some articles out there about security, and so it can happen that people will. I guess it's almost like a photo bomb your Zoom meeting. But to do that, somebody has to have given out the link or the password or however it's set up. It's not just people randomly surfing the internet and jumping on your Zoom call. Yeah, Sherrie says always use a password. Absolutely. But, Zoom is a great tool. And what I would recommend is go on to the Zoom site, make a free account, and then just do a Zoom with your mom, dad, cousin, whatever, and you'll just find that it's really pretty easy, and it'll never be perfect. Just get on there and do it. And you'll find that it can be a great tool to be able to reach out. And, we all know that with an email, when you send an email, it loses context. It loses the emotion, the feeling. Well, this is a way to get around that. And you can you could even pre-record videos and send them at certain times of the transaction. By the way, I just wanted to let you know, I talked to the lender and your loan is approved. Congratulations. By the way, I just confirmed closing is set for such and such. Looking forward to not seeing you or whatever.
Yeah. And absolutely. And we're not necessarily pushing just Zoom, because there's FaceTime, there's Whereby, there's WhatsApp, there's bomb videos. There's a lot of different tools. Can you imagine if this had happened pre-technology.
Look at you using all those technical terms.
I'm telling
Who
you.
are you? It's like I don't even
know
know you anymore.
Well, and I did have a friend say, well, I'm so glad this has happened because now people realize that they don't have to get together now anymore like they used to. And for me, that's counter to the way I do my business. I'm like, no, this is very uncomfortable for me. This serves a purpose right now. I fully intend on going one-on-one with my clients once all this ends. But for a lot of people, you're going to see, I think, increased Zoom sales meetings and different things. It's going to have an impact long-term on what we're doing out there. Did we get everything covered here?
We went through everything that was on our outline that was provided to us at the last minute. Like 30 seconds before this class started, I was supplied an outline by far. But anyway, I'd like to open it up for questions. Anything that you think you could ask that Chip wouldn't be able to answer so we could just watch him stumble over himself. Anybody got anything?
I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. Feel free to remute yourself if you have loud dogs or kids.
Let's see. I see Courtney Smith. She's always got something smart alecky to say. Courtney, what do you got?
I do actually have a question. When you said to do print the pictures and stuff for the appraiser, if they're doing a drive-by, how do you get it to them?
Well, if they call me, I've got their name. I could ask them for their email. I also was always a big fan of putting together a package and saying, hey, I'm going to leave this package there for you.
That's what I do too.
I'm already open.
Okay.
So but it's a great question, Courtney Smith.
Yep.
When I did that the other day with the appraiser, I had the listing, of course. I just emailed him some comps that I had put together and kind of an explanation as to why they were comps. And it was good that he didn't need the date. He needed the 1 day code. But anyway, it gave me an opportunity to reach out. And he had signed up for it through Showing Time. So I had his email address and that sort of thing.
Especially if you know your comps out there, and if you know that a home really had an issue or had a cat smell or there was something going on there, the appraiser doesn't know that either. So make sure you're doing your job. And if there's a low comparable out there, make sure you pointed it out to them, making them aware of that.
That was a huge thing for me in a house in Bowling Green. The appraiser came and, I mean, it was a very unusual house and there was just nothing around like it. And you know, I had to talk to him about how he's going to have to go back. He looked at me like, how am I going to get this price? And I'm like, walk through it and tell me it doesn't deserve it. And he's like, you're right, it does. I said, well, so let's talk about what your parameters are. You know, do we need to go into another county? Do we need to go longer in date? That kind of thing. And, you know, I sent him comps and then notated on each of the comps on the agent gallery, you know, this one has this, this, and this, but mine has this, this, and this, and this one's not a comp. And I had all that in red and sent him everything under the sun, and that did it.
Well, and I really think that our realtor community has really stepped up in a big way. I think even more than before. I think we are very collaborative with things. I've used and not used the COVID addendum. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. You know, in the beginning, I used it more. It's kind of like if, you know, SHIT happens and we can't control it out there, then we all have to work together and figure out a solution to make things happen. But it seems like, hopefully, knock on wood, that we're kind of past the worst of it and can kind of keep things rolling along now. I don't see any reason why inspections and things like that or lockdowns any further will happen. So.
Oh, that's Sherry's iPhone. That's who that is. Oh, universally one of my favorite people. Oh.
Hello, gentlemen. You are doing an excellent job. And I just wanted to pipe in here as far as the settlement experience. Any of the good title companies around here, and you guys know who they are. We know who they are. All you have to do is just communicate with them. If there's something that your client needs or that you need special to happen at settlement, we're going to go out of our way in order to make sure that happens to you, for you and for your clients. So, and certainly with some things in Virginia, you know, kind of opening up a little bit as of the 15th, you're going to see some changes in that as well. So just make sure that you're communicating with your title company and let us know, and we're going to do whatever we can.
One thing we didn't talk about, but we can add, and again, defer back to your brokers, whatever your office policy is by any means. But one thing that still remains a little bit old school are the EMDs checks. We're slowly getting past those, And at first, that was one of our biggest issues. And for us now, we normally would hold the EMDs, but now we are asking them to actually have the title companies hold the EMDs. They can drop by the contract, drop off EMD. It's one less thing, not only for our clients, but for our admin staff at the offices that have to process the EMD checks. They're just as safe at the title companies. But again, defer back to your individual brokerages, whatever their policy is, go with that.
I believe Shay Williams-Hinnant had, I'm sorry, Sherry, I'm gonna put you on hold 1 sec.
Okay.
Go into universal hold there for me. Shay Williams-Hinnant, you wanted to interrupt Chip and say something.
Sometimes I love you, Kevin, but first of all, I want to say that I know that Barb did not just give you an agenda. I know that's not true, but the other thing I wanted to say is that for listings, what I have done is if somebody needs to put in new carpet or whatever vendors they needed to reach out to, a plumber or electrician or whatever, what I have done is made appointments, and I always tell them choose at least 2 or 3 of every type of vendor they need. And what I did, I've done it twice so far, is had everybody come on the same day. Just scheduled everybody like a half an hour apart from each other and literally had them come on the same day so they would not be disrupting their home or, just in and out of her house or whatever. So we sanitized, we had hand wipes, we had booties, we had masks, we had everything that anybody needed when they came in. And the homeowners were very appreciative that I had taken those steps.
And I also think right now, the booties and especially Clorox wipes, they're getting really hard to come by versus anything else out there. But I do think as a realtor being a professional, one of the best things you can do after you've done to the house is literally go through the house, wipe down those doorknobs, turn off the light switches, make sure everything's secure. I generally text the listing agent, let them know we're done and we've wiped things down. Thank you for letting us look at your home today. So different things that you can do to shine a little bit. What other questions we got?
I want to go back to Sherry, not Sherry's iPhone. Sherry was asking about if I had heard back from anybody about the whether it's a drive-by or not. And I have not heard back, but I would say that when the appraiser calls you for the access information, to definitely ask them, is this a drive-by or not? Or like Sandy Pierce so eloquently said, reach out to them beforehand. But I think it's something you really need to be on top of because you're working for your client to make sure that it appraises.
Absolutely.
Make sure we get that value. So, there's another step for us, and it's another way to show our value. By the way, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, when you list with me, when you get a contract, I am going to be in close contact with the appraiser, and these are the things I'm going to do to help ensure we do get the value for your property.
Thank you.
What else you got? Leanne Black, you got anything you want to ask me? She said no. I got a question from somebody named LCR Murray. I don't know. Concerning virtual closings, it is my understanding that Westmoreland County does not accept forms virtually. Are you aware of this in any other counties? Sherry.
Yes, actually, there are, Orange County is one of them and Westmoreland. For the most part, the ones right around here, the city, Spotsy, Stafford, definitely are all accepting the e-recordings now. But I mean, again, just make sure that you are talking with your title company. If this is something where one side or the other is trying to do an e-closing, they do have to be able to accept that. And again, this is something too, guys, where it is changing literally day by day and week by week as everyone kind of adjusts to this new normal. And just wanted to say one thing too, make sure that you do talk to your title company. Chip, you had mentioned about EMDs. And there are apps out there available, which we have one that you can just download the EMD from your phone. You take a picture so no one has to go in anywhere. And then most title companies will allow you to wire in the EMD as well. Yeah. So just a couple more options so that you're not.
The first week or two, we realized some of the walls we had, but it was interesting. At first there was always, is the government going to shut us down? What do we do with these EMDs and stuff? But,
right.
Just quickly within 24 hours, we, courthouses were possibly closing down. it was really kind of weird the first week or two, but now I think we've gotten ladders against every wall that's been put up there, and there's a way to get over it. So there shouldn't be any reason you can't go to closing now.
I got a question from Leanne Black, a good one. Are sellers requiring buyers to provide a pre-approval letter prior to authorizing in-person showings? So that's an interesting question. I'm almost surprised that it took COVID-19 for this type of thought process to happen. If I'm selling my home, I might like to know that they're real buyers. Now, I believe that we've all done it in the history of being a realtor, is taking around buyers that aren't pre-approved, and we all know when we're doing that, we're basically an unpaid tour guide. But as a seller, I would expect to see more of this. I have not personally seen that.
And honestly, I don't know, as a listing agent, I don't know that I would put that out there because I don't want to put that limitation on a possible good showing per se. But as a buyer's agent, if an agent's out there showing property to buyers that have not even been pre-approved yet, I can't justify that one in my head at all.
But if I had a buyer who was approved to say, you know, 450, and they wanted to go look at a house that was 425, I don't know if I want to show my hand to the listing agent.
Yeah, so I don't know that I would be that strict.
I would also guide you, if you do it for one, do it for all. Make sure we're enforcing all fair housing things.
Yeah.
This is your policy, that's great, but apply it evenly.
But I mean,
And
isn't that,
also,
sorry, go ahead.
also in our communication with that listing agent, I always reach out to listing agents before I show their property. Even, you know, once I go through showing time, but it wouldn't even hurt just to even mention it. Like you said, Sandy, you don't want to give your eggs away, but it may not be a bad idea just to even say that, you know, your buyer's already pre-approved and, you know, they want to see this particular property.
Absolutely. Was there somebody else that had a question?
Is it not just, I mean, very few realtors will go out the door without a pre-approved buyer anyway. I mean, that's the premise of our business. And
So I agree with you, Maury Kelly, 100%. I think what happens is, and when I teach pre-licensing or newer agents, you know, we're always talking about the excitement of having that license and being able to go out and do it. And you start seeing dollar signs before you start running it like a business. And I think newer agents are still prone to, well, I'll show them a couple properties because I really feel uncomfortable asking them to sign a buyer's agreement. So I think we still see a little of that, but for the most part, Maury, you're 100% right. A seasoned agent or someone who's been around the block and burned a few times is not going to show property to someone who's not pre-approved. But that being said, we had a situation right when COVID started, and an agent in my office who was the listing agent got a letter from the buyer's agent in another company, and it was from the lender that said, hey, we're just not doing the loan. Due to COVID-19, we're just not doing it. And the loan was about ready to close, and they just said, we're not doing it. So I think even having that letter, I think it's worthwhile to vet that letter a little bit. Is it a lender you've heard of? You know, is a lender that you know, have you been burned by them before? I mean, there's good lenders and there's bad lenders, you know, just like there's good agents and there's bad agents. And I think it is imperative that we do that. Shay Williams hinted, heard back from an appraiser I texted. Shay? Barbara, unmute.
Yes. Actually, and another one just responded to me. Mary Williams said,
Oh, yeah.
my question was, are all appraisers having to do drive-bys, or does it depend on the lender requirements? And she did try to call me, but I had to text her back until I was in a Zoom class, and this was a question that had been asked. Mary Williams said, no, we are going inside. It does depend on the lender, but most lenders that I deal with do want interior inspections. However, Wells Fargo only wants drive-bys. Hope that answers your question. Then, wait a minute, Lisa Hockaday just texted, and she said, for VA, it depends on if the appraiser or the seller/homeowner feel uncomfortable. I have not done any drive-bys. I am not paranoid, and no one else has been either. I don't like drive-bys because I need to know the condition, etc., of the house.
So it sounds like it's lender-driven, and that, you know, the seller apparently in some situations does have a say in that. So you know, there, and Shay, we really appreciate you getting that back to us. You obviously have better contacts than I do, but that's really great because it exemplifies or accentuates or amplifies, whatever the word is, the changes that are happening in our industry, and that they sort of meander through the process. There's not like one hard and fast answer there. Well, it depends on the lender. Well, it depends on the loan. Well, it depends on the seller. So, you know, and that sort of in a box, in a vacuum, tells us what our industry is like now. There's lots of different things. And one of the things that is in this outline that we got 12 seconds before this class started talks about that there are so many new and exciting things that are going on, but we also have to be ready to sometimes just sit back and take a breath. Sometimes there's going to be things that happen that it's going to be new, and it's going to be a situation where, wow, I got to tell my buyer or seller, and it's going to be unfortunate. But I think, one, as professionals, we need to prepare our clients that this is new, and I'm a professional, and I'm going to handle everything, but we need to all understand that there's going to be things that come up in this new world that we're going to have to deal with. And, you know, Warren Buffett in his biography was quoted, and I'm going to quote this, and he said, "You can always tell a son of a bitch to go to hell tomorrow." And and that's a quote. And thing is, you know, in the heat of the battle, you don't have to react. You can stop and sit back and, okay, what does this really mean? Is it really a problem? Or is it an opportunity, and how do I solve it? And I think that is great advice in this new world where things pop up at the 11th hour, and it's a challenge for closing. Well, let's just step back. Is this really what I think it is, or can we get through it?
Well, and two things came to my head too, real quick. One thing, remember too, that as this started, there are a lot of agents that are new out there. And hopefully a lot of them have the support of their brokerages out there and good training going on. You know, it's tough enough to get started in this business, let alone start when all this started. And so just remember to have patience out there. Remember, we were new at one time too, and they're doing their best that they can, and try to guide them or send them back to their brokerages as much as they possibly can. And the second thing, I think probably one of the most challenging things has been dealing with rental occupied properties. When you have that, remember that renter has no vested interest in that thing going to close, and they've got strangers coming through their home. And if I'm being honest, many realtors are not as respectful as they should be when they go through. They need to make sure that they treat and respect that they gave you the opportunity to go inside their house. So make sure you leave it like you found it. Even more so, wipe it down. Leave them a note. Thank you very much for letting us take a look at your home. I have wiped down all the doorknobs and stuff to the best of my ability. But don't be mindful of the fact that renter, it really is nice that they're letting you in when they're trying to enjoy that house as well.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was mesmerized. You were like on a roll there.
Well,
Dang.
I'm done.
All right, so some companies are not allowing anyone into occupied rental, Shay. That is great. Sherrie Shaw also said respond, not react. Apparently she went from Sherry's iPhone to Sherrie Shaw. That's cool. But yes, Shay, that is correct. I know there are companies out there in occupied rental. They're just not taking the liability. So there is that out there.
But there are, you can, as long as there's a picture shown, you could still write the contract, try to work something out like we're talking about the 48-hour contingency afterwards. Have that conversation with your tenant if you're the listing agent, and let them know this is the approach we'll take. Let them know that you're taking their family's health seriously.
So we've been going for 51 minutes, which is almost a record for Chip. I've never heard him speak this much in my life. It's really wonderful. But is there any more questions out there that anybody would like to ask Chip?
Well, we've got through a really weird patch, but
yeah, it was good stuff. See who else is on here. Anybody else I could pick on?
I just want to pop on real quick. If people have more specific questions about property management and rental issues, Kim McClellan is the committee liaison for the Property Management Committee, and she does Zoom calls like this every other Friday. So if anybody's interested, feel free to shoot her or I an email, and we'll send you a link to that so you can participate. I know it's a unique situation for renters as well and property owners. Also, we're going to continue to try to do these weekly free Zoom calls as long as the classroom's unavailable. Just to give you a sneak peek, I don't think we've released the information yet, but next week we're going to have one on finding FSBOs. The week after that, pandemic prospecting. So we keep trying to come up with ideas that hopefully you'll find value in, so I can see your faces here if I can't see in the classroom till sometime in June or whenever the governor.
Hey, Linda Murray, are you on an airplane? That looks like an airplane seat. Unmute.
No, if I'm sitting in front of my antique stove in my
Oh, it
living
looks
room.
like an airplane seat from this angle. That was kind of
So-
cool. All right, Chip wants to
Well,
show everybody his
I was
homemade
just gonna say,
mask.
I'm going out today. I've got buyers I'm working with. I was pretty blunt. I've shown them once before their children showed up that I didn't know they were going to come the first time. But I asked them point blank, you know, we're going to go out and look at, I knew this was only one that we're going to look at, but I asked them point blank. I said, you know, it'd be really helpful if you can find a babysitter for the kids. And they said, absolutely. And I also prepare my clients too to bring their mask. I have my baseball mask here that I had that was lucky enough that Shay made this for me, so it makes it even more special.
Wow.
So I wear this when I go out looking at homes. But you know, again, it's like anything else. We adapt and we keep taking care of our clients.
All right.
So we appreciate your time today.
Thank you all very much. Let's get a round of applause for future Olympian Chip Taylor. There we go. All right. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
You too.